Problem solving is something that schools generally don't teach you.
No, I'm not on medication. I'm on weed though, and I feel hella good.
A lot more stuff to back this shit up, right? I have still yet anybody to bring up this email from the Epstein files. And why? Is it because it's buried so deep in there? Is it that nobody thought that Jeffrey fucking Epstein would be involved with basically fucking elves? Elves. Ant people. Hopi ant people. You've seen this shit too. I'm gonna fuck you around. Lots been happening. You see my living room's a lot different than the last time I vlogged. Welcome.
A state of hibernation. I need some action. I need to come out of retirement and return to public life. Goody goody.
I'm still mostly the same person. Hi. I convinced my mentor to let me vlog again because I've had trouble working on the next video. It's a lot. Let me sit you down. So yeah, I have a lot of stuff. A lot's going on right now. A lot's been going on, and I had to kind of stop vlogging for a little bit because I had some things happen that involves this shit, that involves this, and 3-letter organizations and other shit. But yeah, I read this entire fucker. I've read this entire book. I told you I've been in esoteric school, so I've read this. This entire thing, I've read this. This entire thing. And the supplement notes that I was given. You know what's really interesting is the Rothschilds are mentioned in this book. Dogmas and Morals and Dogma. The Rothschilds are mentioned in this, and it tells the Freemason that don't worry if you don't have the same kind of money as the Rothschilds. You'll be fine. So I read this. I've also read that. This, right here, that. So I've read that and this. This whole fucker. Yeah, with supplementary notes, right? Super, right? So I've read those two. I've read these. A lot of those. Where am I at? Oh, here's more of my books. There's books everywhere. My bracelet's off, so I don't know. I've read this. This is actually really important for understanding more of this. This helps you understand a lot about what the fuck is actually going on with the UFO thing. Didn't think that Plato would help me understand what interdimensional beings fucking are, but it does. Sounds a little schizo, I know, but this is where we're at. I am reading Plato to understand what is going on now with interdimensional beings. This too, this is interesting. This is an interesting book that my mentor wanted me to read because it all talks about that white man's burden that we've talked about, right? The white man's burden. Yeah. So this is interesting. I've read this book like 10 fucking times. Hey, Alicia Marie and Remy, you don't know a fucking clue about manifestation and duality. The fact you get hung up on duality is stupid because the whole point of all of this, of all of this shit, manifestation crap, is to merge heaven with earth eventually. Did you know that? Were you aware of that? Because The Secret forgets to tell people all that. That you're really... If you think you're going to just sit around and use The Secret to manifest material objects like Labubus or pieces of paper with dead presidents on it, you're opening yourself up for a world of hurt, which this book kind of goes over as well. I'm open to a lot of different religions nowadays. Bruh. And we'll be talking about all of this more, right? What else do I have? Yeah, because see, look, I got several volumes of this. This is interesting, too. It's got all kinds of pictures. You know, I even got books here. Where is this? I got hooked up with this book that has pictures of artifacts that were in the Baghdad Museum that just disappeared. They're gone. Yeah. So like I said, I've been doing a lot. Fuck. Yeah. Side note too, my kitty, Mr. Frank, you guys knew how elderly he was. He finally passed. He's on the other side now. That was why I had the dream about my dog, Cleo, from childhood. I believe I had that dream so she can come and get Frank. And Frank was 17. It was really sad, and it's been hard for me to lose him, but I was so grateful at the life I gave him. And my mentor and Chi-Chi really helped out. I've talked to you about them, and helped me a lot through that. So, you know, I don't know what people's beliefs are about, you know, death and stuff, and that is something we'll probably be getting into more on this channel. But like, you know, I've talked about, like, you know, when you have memories or have things that people leave behind, like their art and stuff like that, sometimes you still have them in a way. Sort of. I don't know. We're talking about a lot of crazies. Yeah. I will not be seeing the movie. I'm not allowed to go see The Odyssey that's coming out in theaters, because it's going to be a bastardized version of what Homer actually wrote, so that is fucked. Yeah. This book is actually really good. Everybody should probably read the Iliad, because this is where a lot of this culture came from. A lot of this culture is stemmed from this culture, because when we've talked about bloodline families, these bloodline families, look, as above, so below, right? 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 And then when you put the two together, you get a square, right? And a square is the basic shape for a building, which is a house. And when we got buildings was when we got the start of civilization, and we didn't have to live in caves anymore. Or underground, some of us. We're going to talk about that. Yeah, so if you want to understand a little bit more about the world, this is actually good. I know. AI's here. We're fighting one of those data centers going in by where I live. It's going to be up more east of me, but like I have friends who are out like fighting this like data center being put in, but I'm actually using AI to help me understand this, and I've learned so much. Like, these are all my notes and shit. Yeah. I was trying to work on a video explaining as above, so below, but it just got so hard, and then there's all this stuff coming out, and my mentor told me just go back to your lazy vlogging. He said, just go back to your lazy vlogging. He hates my vlogging. He hates when I vlog. He likes when I do the more sit-down videos, but I like being able to put out more content, and that's been the between us. So I think he's just always gonna hate that I'm kind of like Shelley Duvall. Yeah, but without the drugs and stuff. So, but yeah, this is good. This is good. You can learn a lot from it about this. What's funny about this is you get into this book and the higher degrees of masonry, and they start telling you myths and stuff are just about the stars and how they move through the stars. But if you're actually a part of these families, you don't get that story. You get told how this is actually real, but other people aren't going to understand. And you can't tell people this because people are going to think you're trying to say you're special or like Jesus or something. And that's not what we're saying, and they'll be confused. So just don't say anything, and we don't talk about it, okay? We don't talk about it. The other thing that I've seen popping up a lot, and it was something that me and my mentor have been talking about. It was something we brought up. Where is that? Here's this book. Where's the other one? The World You Must Know. There we go. So we've talked a lot about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism because he says, because there is a rise of anti-Semitism in the United States right now because people don't understand what they're looking at all. They don't understand what they're looking at, and they're just assuming that these are Jewish people. They're not. So I'm going to explain something to you. So there's a whole anti-Israel thing going on in America right now, right? For me, and I'm going to explain this to you, okay? So I'm going to use a little story scenario. Let's say there's a woman and she's of a certain religion, right? She's, let's say, Jewish, right? And she meets a man who is Catholic. Both families have had these for years, right? Blah, blah, blah. They get married, right? Their children are going to be both Jewish and Catholic. Yeah, whether they're raised or not, they're going to say, well, my mom was Jewish and my dad was Catholic, right? And they might practice mom's religion and they converted to mom's religion. But yeah, sometimes dad would talk about being Catholic, and then sometimes we would participate in certain Catholic, like, Christmas and things. But, you know, it wasn't something we really talked about because of mom's family and being Jewish. Take Catholic away and say, it's really more prior to this, but Canaanite. Say Babylonian. So what happened is I forget the years, but it was thousands and thousands of years ago. There was a period of time where hybrid people, or people who are believed to be hybrid creatures, aliens, elves, we're going to get more into that, started getting hunted and persecuted. And this is around the time when monotheism started to spring up. That long ago, when people started realizing that, hey, if we direct everybody towards one central point and all of their sacrifices, and then we turn their sacrifices into monetary stuff that us, the central point, can use. Because around that time, there was tons of pagan temples, right? And we even had oracle things. You know, we had, like, you know, they have the Temple of Apollo. Well, there was tons of, like, oracle temples, right? And when you went, you gave gold and treasure and money and things like that. And those things, actually, that's where we got banks. Temples used to originally be banks. Well, some people started looking around and going, you know, if we directed people to one central point, we'd have a lot more money. So, okay. And then it started getting, people started getting persecuted for wanting to hang on to the family beliefs. And this was back when a lot of times during paganism times, cities would have their own god. Families would have their own god. Family lineage would have their own god, or a city or a region would have their own god. I even heard that there were some areas where they were having gods like on multiple streets and shit like that. And they were just everywhere, right? Well, some people didn't want to get rid of that because that was something that their family had been doing for a long time, since before, when they were like, I guess, like out in caves or whatever. I don't know. Whatever their mythic belief was, right? And they didn't want to get rid of that. Well, some people started getting persecuted. So a lot of times, and this book explains it a lot, when people were born looking different or having different abilities, so like if you were born with like weird ears or you looked like a lion, you were considered half lion. Okay? Where am I at? So yeah, you were considered a hybrid. And it was considered a birth omen. Okay? Trying to get my thoughts together. But yeah, so during this time, a lot of these people started getting hunted and stuff, because there's a lot of myths about hybrid creatures and things, and a lot of these people got built into myths over time. That's where I was going with this. So a lot of times when somebody was born looking like, a lion or a bull or something like that, or some deformity, they got looked at as special before they started moving into monotheism. So like a lot of times if you were born, we've heard like a birthmark on the face, you were considered, you were born special, right? And you were going to have psychic abilities if you were born with the caul on your face or whatever. Anybody heard of that? There would be certain, so they would be dedicated and made special. And there were some families that would even try to stay together because they believed that these genetic anomalies were special. It made them different. It made them gods. Because some of them believe that when these people were born looking like a hybrid, looking like a bull or a fish person, a mermaid or whatever, that was because the mother was taken over by a demon or a god, like a Zeus, right? Some of these families, they believe that this is true. And that they are related to an interdimensional being that somehow was able to manifest itself. And I've actually, because of this and the Odyssey and the Iliad, kind of understand that a little bit. How that could be possible for a being that is in a different light spectrum that we can't see, can somehow do different things to manifest themselves into our reality by like being willing to help us out or teach us something, which would be why abductions, think about that. And so when this is what Chi-Chi told me, when they manifest into our reality, they don't always look normal. So sometimes that's why you'll get the alien things and the aliens look weird. There's a lot of reasons for that whole gray alien, why people see gray aliens. We can get into all that too. That's why they'll all manifest as like birds or owls, which that's something I've encountered ever since, that was one of the things that freaked me out, that I kind of stopped vlogging and just went to because we had owls and hawks, which I'm gotten used to it now, seeing them around. We actually had an instant where, yeah, they can manifest themselves. So anyways, so the hawk, so one day I'm outside because I've started like a garden and stuff like that. I'll get into that. Some of my hobbies I've been doing. meanwhile, while reading everything. So, there was a hawk, the hawks, and they've been hanging around. Well, this hawk came and he flew onto this palm tree, and there was a mockingbird that was bugging it, and then it flew away. And that night, that palm tree broke and fell. But when it fell, it missed both of my neighbors' cars. One neighbor, where their car would have been totaled, wasn't there. They were gone for the night. And when they came back, they were like, holy crap. And it missed hitting my neighbor's bedroom. It almost crashed into her bedroom where like the corner where her bed was. Like, we came out, and I'll put a picture if I remember, but I came out and we got so lucky that I remember thinking, oh my God, I would have had to pull my neighbor out from underneath that tree. Like, holy crap, we got so lucky. And then there was no damage to their cars. The way it landed, she might have had, the one car didn't get hit at all. Neighbor's gone. And then it landed, like literally landed right, like the palm fronds from what fell was touching her car. So, another thing I've learned. So, I have had some weird things happening because of everything, right? One thing my mentor and Chi-Chi told me was that when you start noticing like the hawks and the owls, that's when you're going to notice people from places like this coming to try and figure out what the hell. I guess they're this, and there's a quote in this book that talks about it, where the gods are your friends. Okay, gods with a little g, okay? And I'm not talking about worshiping gods with a little g. They're like like these books see them like an interdimensional friend. This one tells you eventually, oh, it's just a way to look at the stars. This one tells you, no, actually, the gods are like friends that are invisible. They're not to be idolized or worshipped, but maybe like a friend or like someone to look at and be like, yeah, I can do it too. There's a quote from the Iliad. Even the gods themselves can bend and change, and theirs is a greater power, honor, and strength. That's what my mentor pointed out to me, because I said, well, you know, in this book here, a lot of those gods are seen as demons, and they're not good, right? And we're told not to worship all them. And he goes, well, forget all that worship crap. He goes, forget the idolization crap, because if your friend doesn't want you to, if you have a really good friend, they're not going to want you to worship them and do all this like bullshit crap, right? They're going to want to help you be a better human or whatever you are. Like me. I also learned a lot about my tumor from the Epstein files. Yeah, that too, but so yeah. Maybe some things that used to be bad aren't bad anymore. And they're not a religious thing. They're more like, hey, they're just there. They're just there, and you're going to have to learn to coexist with them in the world. You can put a lot of labels on people, right? Just like we could put a lot of labels on things we don't understand and call it a demon or an alien. But it's really something that has actually always been there. And things like this shit has been created to brainwash you so that some people are aware of these, let's say, invisible entities, right? Here's the other thing. Not all those invisible entities are bad. are good. They're bad. Some are bad. They're like people. They're like people. Some are good. Some are bad. Some are just eh. And you gotta use your brain. You can't just listen to anybody you meet on the street, right? Same thing with this. And that's why, like, maybe you've heard me before, who are you praying to? Because that's actually important. Because you start reading some of these and learning that a lot of the stuff that is in this book was taken from other, not like copied and made into something, you know, like, you know how they love to say, like, oh, this is really just, you know, this, and the church just readopted it into monotheism. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? What I'm talking about is there's language in this that very well mimics this. Like, somebody was like, hey, you know, people were really into this. It worked. Yeah. This is still good, though. There's nothing wrong with the Bible. I read it. I read the Bible. I read a lot of religious texts. Use your brain, right? You can't just listen to what other people say. This is bad. This is good. The other thing about manifestation. Alicia, you know about this. You've been riding the struggle bus, girl? When you manifest and you do manifestation, like The Secret, it's going to work for a little bit, but in the end, you're going to end up inviting, if you believe in this, like, if you don't, cool, check out, but if you believe in these interdimensional gods with a little g, demons, spirits, elementals, and you are doing manifestation because you are inviting, you almost need something on the other side to manifest. And that's why a lot of people will use Jesus and God to do their manifestation, because they know that's good and it works. And then there's also a lot of guidance in this too. Like, the church, it talks about, like, not just like asking God and Jesus, like, can I have $1 million, Jesus? Like, you know, you're using your brain and asking for things that are good for you. You know, you're not going to ask God to hook you up with some schmucks. You know what I mean? I'm not going to ask him to help me score on the street. You know, God's not going to do that. He's going to help you do things that are good for you. But if you're just manifesting and you're manifesting material shit, like old girl Alicia Marie and Remy Parsons and Ollie are, you're inviting some fucked up shit into your, not just your life, but your soul, like your counterpart on the ethereal range. Because if you're someone who's manifesting and you believe that I can imagine in my brain and then bring it out here, then me telling you that when you do that, there are entities that are watching and then are going to attach themselves to you, and the next thing you know, you have all this pipes breaking in your house, your friendships aren't working out, let's see, flies in the house. That's a big one. That's how you know. That's how you know you've gotten a bad entity attached, is you'll get a lot of flies in your house. Certain bugs, and that's if you're just manifesting and stuff. You'll get bugs and shit. Whenever I've done stuff. You can go to my Instagram. It's only to make people get back on track and do the right thing. Whatever that is for them and between their belief system, right? But if they're not up on their doing the right thing, you know, and reading positive material, like This is positive. You can learn a lot from the Iliad about war and honor, and you can learn a lot here about love and the journey home. But if you're not reading positive things that are going to enrich you in a positive way, or doing things that are going to, you're going to have bad things attached to you. Because when you're doing manifestation was always in context of a spell or a prayer. It's never been something it was ever done on its own before The Secret was put out. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. And then they're inviting bullshit into their lives because they wanted a car or a certain labubu on a box, and they wanted to prove to everybody they could do this and nobody else could. Look, see, I can imagine this labubu and it pops out in a box. Just like I imagined, see? I'm so good at manifestation. As soon as you start acting like that, you're going to have interdimensionals attach to you who are going to show you that you aren't it. And I've watched that with people. Yeah. Watch that with a lot of people who think they know, but they don't know. So, we're going to be doing this vlogging thing so I can show you, like, what I'm learning. Because I feel like I learn stuff on a daily, or there's news going on that we can talk about. It's just easier for me. It's just, this shit's just, it's a lot to just sit here on my own. And my mentor's been in it for a long time, and so is Chi-Chi. So it's like, this is all normal for them. And this is not normal for me to want to hide in a fucking house and never go anywhere and never do anything. Like, I'm in the house a lot, but, like, I've never been just where I'm afraid to, where I'm wanting the doctor to come see me because I don't want to leave my room. I don't want to do that. I don't want to live my life where I'm just in a fucking room. So, anyways, I saw my mom text, but yeah. We're going to be going over more of this, all these books, but yeah. I read this. This book is awesome. This book's 111 years old. Talks a lot about Babylonian gods. There's some other books that are old that I'm going to be getting a hold of too. I got the hookups. I do. It is later, so I decided to take some notes so we can talk about manifestation a little bit more and what it really is and what it is not, okay? So, take a look at The Secret a little bit. So, the beginning of The Secret, and that's free on YouTube if you guys never saw it. I think most people have. Focus on me, camera. Oh my god. Focus, camera. I know it's Friday, but damn. Okay. Bob Proctor at the beginning of The Secret talks about, and it's at the beginning, and he talks about ancient Babylonia. Basically shit from this book, okay? And he talks about how the Babylonians, the ancient Babylonians, knew about all this stuff, and that they knew about manifestation, and that, you know, why does less than 1% of the population, you know and use this stuff? It's because they know the secret, right? He left out a lot of the mechanics, though, about how these 1%ers actually use manifestation as the ancient Babylonians would put it. Now, manifestation is usually in context of a spell. This camera is not wanting to focus on me. What the hell? Technology. So, it was usually in the context of a spell. So, sympathetic magic, and there's contagious magic. It would be basically contagious magic. And normally, when the ancient Babylonians talked about contagious magic, manifestation, it had to do with the way the gods would manifest into our reality, or how a demon made you sick and it manifested as an illness. And they believe that anything like a cramp, a headache. Zane, your pancreatitis was from a demon. And which I'm sorry about that. I've had pancreatitis from an adverse reaction to a medication. It's not fun. I'm sorry. But anyways, I said a couple years ago to Zane, you know, he needed to cut back on the binge drinking. Focus camera. Okay, I think we're back. I had to do the shut off thing. Sometimes it does this weird thing with the camera, and it's probably pissed because I haven't used it in a minute. So it's, yeah. Anyways. I didn't manifest it. I didn't do a spell. So, alright. In this book, mainly, it talks about manifesting as in, like, a spell. Right? Or, like, if a demon attacks you, it'll manifest in your body as an illness. Let's see. Also, too, one thing that people are confused about that I've seen is, and I know a lot of newer versions of the Bible kind of gets it mistranslated. So, you know, Jeffrey Epstein, his bank account was titled Baal, B-A-A-L, right? Baal. Baal actually in ancient Babylonia just means Lord. And they would use Baal to refer to some of the different gods. So in here, let me see. Where is it that it talks about Baal? I marked my book so I could remember where all this was at. Yes. It is from Inib that Enel takes over the milder attributes of an agricultural deity, a Baal or a lord of the fields. But in return, Neib, adopted by the Sumerians, becomes like his father, a war god, armed for the fray and whose presence is felt in the thick of battle. So like a battle god. And he becomes lord of agriculture and battling and stuff. Do you see how that works? So Jeffrey Epstein labeling his bank account Baal was meaning that probably money was his god, his lord. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm not saying Jeffrey Epstein wasn't into this shit. He was. He was into some dark, deep Babylonian crap we're going to get into. And like I said, these people are not Jewish. They might have Jewish ancestry, the Jewish DNA. They might go to temple. But they're also practicing ancient Babylonian religions that actually predate the Talmud. You know, the Babylonian Talmud, and that's what people will usually get their anti-Semitic from, you know, and they will just attribute everything that anybody follows out of that book. Well, they must be like a Jewish, you know, and Jesus warned us about the Pharisees and all that, right? They're not just Jewish. That stuff has been integrated into the Talmud so that they can hide and continue to live, and they weren't persecuted in the past. You see, like, because for a while, like I said, when monotheism started to become popular, you know, there's people who held on to their paganism beliefs. The darker ones were having to hide them and their dark practices, right? Because some of the stuff that you've heard, like, you know, Moloch, and we've heard the extreme parts. It's not good, right? It's bad. But if this is something that you have been brainwashed in your family to believing is good, and that other people just don't get it, and we just don't talk about it with other parts of our family, and just, you know, we keep it in the family. Let's go on. Let's see, what else did I mark in here? This book's cool. What's cool is the previous owners has marks in it too, so I can see what they marked down. Let's see. Here, this goes ahead and talks about the storm god. It talks about Adad. I can't pronounce some of this stuff, you know. but it talks about him being a storm god and how he would manifest himself. It says, let's see, let me read the passage for you. A totally different god is Adad, the storm god, who is represented as brandishing the thunderbolt and hurling the lightning. Adad is a counterpoint of Enel, another god, right? So it's like probably related. But unlike the latter, who, as we have seen, takes on other traits, Adad or Rahman, the thunderer. So some deities will have several different names, because sometimes these cities would mush together and they'd be like, hey, you know, your god is really our god. See? You hear my mom talking to the cats? It's like old times, right? So he was also called, retains his forbidding character of a god, who, when he manifests himself, does so because his wrath has been aroused. So this god, Adad, or Rahman the Thunderer, he only manifests when he's pissed off, when he's been aroused. Do you see that, how that is? He manifests into our reality as a storm because somebody has called upon him. And generally, and then this book, it talks about this. We get to the part, where's the stuff about hybrids? Giants and dwarfs, the crippled and the deformed person, with strange expressions in their eyes, and Namish, as they represented deviations from the normal, were regarded as imbued with such powers, and curiously enough, women were more commonly singled out than men, perhaps because of the mysterious function of the female in harboring new life in her womb. As a survival form, from this point of view, we find the witch far down into the Middle Ages as a commoner figure than the sorcerer, and in fact surviving the belief in the latter. So he goes on to say that most of the time, back then they had sorcerers were more, and a witch was more seen as someone who conjured demons and stuff. I know this is old language because it's over 100 years old, but so yeah, most people who were born different, born like a hybrid, born a giant, a dwarf, or with medical issues, say like me, we're seen as someone as special, and we're usually made into like one of the priest class. And in Babylonian religion, they had over 30 different types of priests. Some were women. Like, for example, in ancient Babylonia, a musician was a type of priest. A singer was a type of priest. An artist was a type of priest. Now think about that in context with modern music. And if all those are really just spells of a priest, you get into it, a lot of the symbolisms, and we'll get into this more, like using numbers or symbols, certain symbols, people believe that you can use that to encode and manifest more particularly. My cat agrees. He knows. Yeah. So like you can do like write down something, a spell. You can write down a spell and you can put symbols and like all this stuff on it, and then you burn it, and you do it with like asking a certain deity to help you or something. People believe that's an easier way to manifest what you want into reality than to just sit there and think about it. Like Remy and Alicia and Ollie do. Or even just to write it down. No, they believe it is better to use symbols, numbers, colors. Music is particularly, I'm going to start learning some music theory and Pythagoras and how his theory of music with math. And so just to say those things, when you get into real, like, contagious magic and sympathetic magic, it gets a lot more mechanical. You're not using words. You're not being specific. You're using symbols. Because it's a better way to encode into the universe. You believe that. And it also kind of goes with psychology, too, because a lot of the symbols and numbers were ingrained in us, like, psychologically over, so there's a psychological component to it. I'm trying to see what else. More about demons, but yeah, mostly it was demons that they worried about manifesting as a sickness or an illness, and so they would do a lot of incantations and stuff. This also gets into types of divination that they would do. They were big on reading livers, slaughtering a sheep, and then pulling it out and reading the liver. Yeah. That just sounds like a mess to me, but... yeah, we'll get into this more. But yeah, it talks all about this, you know, manifesting. Even had pictures in this. It's pretty cool, but... I know that's a lot for tonight, but Bob Proctor didn't tell everybody everything they needed to know in The Secret. They left out a lot of stuff, because if they told you that this had to do with a part of paganism, Oprah would not have been able to sell The Secret to Christian housewives on ABC in the afternoon, which I'm old enough. I grew up watching Oprah, you know, as the high schooler that got home. And, like, she was the only thing on in the afternoon. So I remember watching her and having The Secret on and watching that and thinking, oh, that's so cool. I could be a billionaire too. Yeah, anybody, there's a possibility for anybody, right? Yeah, so anyways, I'm going to end the video on that because it's been a lot. And we're going to be talking more, so, yo. It's nice to be back, and my mentor says hi. Chi-Chi even says hi. Patrick's here, he says hi too, and all the cats, my mom, so we're all still here, you know, just chugging along into the future like usual, right? We're going to do it this way for a while since there's a lot going on, right? Disclosure Day is coming out too. That movie with Steven Spielberg. Remember, I told you we met him. Was it 2018? We met him in 2018. He also says that's when he started noticing the disclosure stuff. That's when we met up with him in Malibu. He worked with Henry Bumstead. And they worked together on Letters for Imo Shima. We're also going to talk a little bit about Patrick's family and Madame Blavatsky and the elf colonies and what that is all about as well. So, yeah, this has been a lot. As always, the more you know, the more you don't know. All these stars are still yours because I gave them to you. And if you're new, the stars are yours too. We'll talk more about that, but focus, camera. How freaking annoying, but I love you. We'll see you in the next one. Rah.
Problem solving is something that schools generally don't teach you. You know, a lot of people don't have a good generalized approach to problem solving. They're not thorough, don't consider all the possibilities, prepare themselves with the right information. If you can develop a kind of generalized approach to problem solving, it's surprising how it helps you in anything.
I don't think. I know.
Every 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.